let me get right to it. This dude deserves credit for at least playing the game before, coming out with his video. So this is why I'm making a response, because it's someone who's actually played the game compared to everybody else who's crying like the most saltiest of tears over a game that they haven't played. So, alarm hat, at least you played it.
Some of the lower points of the demo, but despite its many flaws, it's actually better than I thought it was going to be. I was expecting an unplayable mess.
Do you mean an unplayable mess in the same way that Heavenly Sword and Enslaved weren't?
Playable. If you turn the music off, you might even get some enjoyment out of it. The biggest problem that this game has is that they chose to call it Devil May Cry, when it very clearly is not Devil May Cry.
No, you're right. It's not Devil May Cry, it's a reboot of Devil May Cry.
I'm not talking about what they've done to the characters in the story. There's no need to further beat that dead horse. I'm talking about the gameplay. The best way I could put it is that it's almost as if a completely new game is trying to wear a cheap Devil May Cry costume. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let's take the elements of Devil May Cry that are present in the new Devil May Cry.
No, let's not change the names, because everybody's name is exactly the same. Their appearances are different, but you've still got Rebellion, Ebony and Ivory, as shown here in the menus.
Suddenly, the game has become completely unrecognizable as Devil May Cry. The controls, the way the game plays, the rhythm, everything. It's so far removed from what Devil May Cry is. Instead of having access to all of your ranged and melee weapons with a single button tap.
I really don't know if you're being serious about that point, but I really hope you weren't, because remember, okay, this is the most important point. This is a demo, not the full game. So you will be given a limited amount of the game. Obviously, it's a demo. I mean, if you go to start, options, and then controls, you can clearly see at the bottom to cycle between guns, angel weapons, and demon weapons, which means that in the full game, because this is a demo, in the full game you will be getting more of those to switch through.
You are instead given the ability to shift between stances. There's an angel stance and a demon stance, which are activated by holding down the left or right trigger. Holding down a trigger, or not holding down a trigger, dictates what your attack buttons do. It's not a bad system, but it's not Devil May Cry. I've been told that it comes from another game, Heavenly Sword. I've never played it, but by looking at the controls, I can see that stances are activated by holding a trigger. So that's where this comes from. It makes sense, as Ninja Theory also made Heavenly Sword. Another huge issue is the complete removal of the ability to lock on. A very bizarre choice for a game like this. Lock-on has been part of Devil May Cry since...
Now this is a point I completely agree with you on, not being able to target in DMC. As soon as I started out the game, I was looking at how do I target, which one it was. I was so used to holding left bumper to target because it's from DMC4. But no, it's not there, and for some reason they didn't add it into the game. I see why they didn't add it into game, which is because with the controls you're holding down either a stance, angel or demon, and to add another button into that, which you lock on, which means that you're limiting your hands, and I see why they didn't add a button to lock on, because you would be limited to the number of buttons you can press at that time. But then again, I also have the question is, why don't they do it so that you can press the stance and then let go of the button and you'll still be in that stance, instead of having to hold it? I also think that not having a lock on and the controls could be blocked.
No directional inputs in this game. Instead, the criteria for attacks is limited to this. Are you on the ground or are you in the air? What button did you press? How many times? And did you pause at any time? Did you hold the button? Are you in angel, demon, or neutral stance? And that's it. Now let's imagine if the game did have lock-on. The number of possible inputs increases dramatically. Not only that, but you can keep enemies in focus, even when they're in tough places to see. Never again will you use that grab move and not really know which enemy is going to get pulled over, or which enemy you're going to pull yourself to. Even if this game wasn't named Devil May Cry, I would still recommend that they include lock-on functionality. I mean, what do we gain by removing it? Does the game somehow become better? They're using 2 buttons for dodging. Why not put lock-on there? I just don't know. I don't understand what they were thinking with this one. I don't understand their logic. And that brings us to styles, one of the most important advancements that was made in the third game. They are nowhere to be found. So there's no Royal Guard, there's no Gunslinger, nothing like that. This is particularly devastating because having on-the-fly style switching in 4 was so good. There are so many different combinations that I am still discovering things in this game. I love that magic suitcase. It's so good. Alright, enough about what's not there. What about what we've got? Well, for starters, the highest difficulty feels really, really easy. Now, to their credit, they did throw in some new enemy types on the higher difficulty. Also, enemies initiate their attacks more often, which is to say, more than none. That's all well and good, but I never feel any sort of pressure. There's no fear of death. There's also not a whole lot of enemies on screen at one time. And sometimes, and I don't understand what I'm doing to make this happen, but sometimes a large portion of a pack of enemies doesn't even spawn, leaving me with just one guy. I know we're on a different engine, and I'm not expecting anything Legendary Dark Knight level. But if I'm not feeling pressure, then it's not a whole lot of fun. Another issue is our Angel weapon. It's not very useful. It doesn't do very much damage, and it doesn't offer much in the way of utility. On the other side of things, the axe absolutely wrecks everything.
See, the thing about the Angel and the Demon weapon is that it's supposed to be an Ikaruga, if you want to call it that, style weapon. You've got the Scythe, which is quick but doesn't do much damage. You've got Rebellion, which is medium damage and medium speed, and then you've got the Axe, which, as you can see, is extremely slow but powerful. The amount of times I've come across games which have the slow and powerful and the quick but not that damaging weapons, Devil May Cry is no different.
Fire guys can only be harmed by the demon weapon. I'm guessing because it's red. This is very unlike Devil May Cry. One of the staples of this series is that you would gain access to a large amount of weaponry, but every weapon could be used. There's no enemies in the game that can only be harmed by Cerberus, for example. You pick what you need based upon the benefits that the weapon provides or your personal skill level with it, not because you can't hurt the enemies without it. Just like you pick your style to suit the situation. I'm a big fan of Beowulf and Rebellion myself, but I know what can be done with Agni and Rudra and Cerberus if the situation calls for it. Never quite got the hang of Navon, though. That's on my list. There's one more thing they put in there that I really wish they didn't. Unskippable cutscenes. Now, I find these to be unacceptable in any game, but this is a Devil May Cry game, or so the title says. You're telling me I gotta watch this every time I play the level? Why? And even the boss battle has cutscenes scripted into it. You can just tell that they're all going to be like this. You know, if I wanted to watch the 2012 remake of They Live, I probably wouldn't. I'd probably go watch the original. But seriously, the only game that's allowed to be a movie is Metal Gear Solid. That's its thing. This is an action game. The more you make me watch, the worse it gets. I don't care if you have story bits, I'm fine with that. But they gotta be skippable, because in all likelihood, I only need to see them once. This whole reboot situation is really unfortunate because, at least from a gameplay perspective, if nothing else, I can see the potential in this game. Now, at the time this video is being made, it's completely mediocre. No one would be paying attention to it if it wasn't for the title. What the game desperately needs is some major work done on the basic mechanics. Right now, it feels like it's trying to be...
One thing I've come to terms to realise is that gamers today are generally whiny shits, and they will complain about everything let's say for example we take your point where you bring up a good middle ground would be to give this games a different name, so we call it like on like hack and slash the game. Um, if you did that and you changed all the names, like in the earlier point you said if you change the names it's a completely different game. If you gave them this game with a different title, there would be a shitstorm of this game is a complete rip-off of Devil May Cry. I mean, look at Castlevania, the amount of games that keeps that people say that game is a rip-off of, like God of War or Devil May Cry, when it's really not. Or people that claim Bayonetta as a rip-off of Devil May Cry, even though you're giving them the exact same but something slightly different. This game here is an example of Bayonetta. It's a different style game. It's the same genre, but it's different in its own little small areas, like the combat system is slightly different from DMC4. It's actually much closer to Nero from DMC4 because I'm a DMC4 Nero player, but that's kind of the whole thing of having a reboot. I mean, if I put these two images up here on screen, why is it that a movie like Amazing Spider-Man gets a reboot and is completely praised, or a reboot of the Tomb Raider and that's being praised, even though that game looks exactly like a female Uncharted? You see? So why exactly is a reboot bad? Everything you've said is a perfect example of what a reboot is. Whether you like it or not, well, that's your opinion. But the whole point of a reboot is to do something different. Again, look at Tomb Raider and The Amazing Spider-Man. Two reboots that went through well, but for some reason everyone is just crapping on this. The problem I have with the people who are complaining is that they don't know what they're talking about. They can be a fan of Devil May Cry, that's cool, there's nothing wrong with that. But when they talk about stuff like the mechanics of the game, like what mechanics do you know? You're just mashing random buttons. And when I look at the people who on a specialist Devil May Cry forums, what their opinion on the Devil May Cry, this new Devil May Cry 5 is, it's generally good. It's not as good as Devil May Cry 4 if you're a Dante player, but it's apparently pretty good according to them. And for someone like me, I've been getting a lot of enjoyment out of it. I can see how this game works, and I can see the future improvements coming. And once the full game comes out and we get the full weapon set, we get all the stances and switches, we get the full level, to run around, and we got all the new enemies and all the new combo system. I mean, I can see the in-depth to the mechanics to it, and I understand that the game is good. I don't mind Dante's appearance, and to be honest, Ninja Theory have got an incredibly good way to tell stories. If you watch that trailer with the Virgil introduction, it sets a really good tone for a really serious story that you can take seriously, compared to something like the other Devil May Cry's. Devil May Cry 1 was good, Devil May Cry 2 and 3, and 4 I just didn't care about. I just wanted to get in and play. But, I mean, the stories have never really been strong for Devil May Cry. I don't know anyone that's really taken them seriously. I mean, Virgil's part was okay. And also, it's kind of like if I was a complete noob at a fighting game, because that's got another game of index mechanics. If you had me, an outsider, to then start talking about why this game is bad, like if I said Third Strike was amazing and then said Street Fighter 4 was rubbish, but I didn't know how to play, you kind of look like a fool because you don't know what you're talking about. How do you know it's bad? What is it that you're basing it on? That's just my main problem with everyone who's complaining so far, is that they don't know what they're talking about. And to be honest, this game is good. It's a very good game. If you do not like the fact that it's called Devil May Cry, then don't look at the title box. It's kind of simple.